Thank you, Dan, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all participants, and welcome to this briefing on the outcomes of the meeting of the Small Intersessional Working Group. We will start with an introduction from the chair and some welcoming words from the chair of the group, Irina Talamoni, following which the Secretariat will give you some information on the process related to the work of the group. And we will then hand over to Mr. Stéphane Bernaudon from France, who's the lead country in this work, to give you information on the report of the group and the recommendations within the report from the lead country. So without further ado, Irina, if I could hand over to you, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I am Irina Talamoni from Argentina, and today I have the pleasure to welcome you to this briefing of outcome of the meeting of the Small Intersessional Working Group on improving the functioning of the PIC procedure. I'm very happy that you make the time to join this webinar, which focuses on the intersessional work made by the group as an opportunity to explain its work and its particular outcomes of 6 meetings. The group has been working during this intersessional period, considering all the contributions of the parties and observers in different consultation instances, and I'm sure that the result of their analysis will enrich the discussions on the topic at the upcoming 7th meeting of the Conference of the Parties in April this year. Today, we will focus on the report prepared by the lead country, in particular recommendations and consultations contained in the document, which was endorsed by the group by electronic means just recently. The intention for today is for the Secretariat to provide some context about the process leading to the development of the report, and then we will turn to France as a lead country to explain the substance of the recommendations that are made in the report. I appreciate the participation of Mr. Stéphane Bernaudon from France in the webinar to address that section. I would like to take the opportunity to thank all the group, as well the parties and observers who provide comment prior, during, and following the meeting of the group, as well as the other convention bodies. There has been a lot of information regarding the challenges and practices comprehensive about the implementation of the PIC procedure that led to the development of the report and throughout the process. I have to say the group maintained a collaborative and constructive spirit in the discussions. In terms of organization, I will now turn the floor over to the Secretariat to explain the process, which is expected about 5 minutes, and following, Stéphane will present the report and the recommendation, which is the main focus of the webinar and will last at least approximately 20 minutes. After the presentation, you are invited to ask questions about 25 minutes. We will take questions through the chat box or by raising hands, and at the end of the presentation, at the time, the Secretariat will help me to identify those participants who may wish to ask questions. So, having said that, starts, and I pass the floor to the Secretariat for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irina. And so just to clarify again that we'll be looking at the process aspects and then hand over to Stéphane for the substance of the recommendations. In terms of the group itself, it was established by a decision in the 16th meeting of the Conference of the Parties, although there was some work done as well before that. The decision 16.2 established the group with balanced representation from all the UN regional groups and with a mandate to identify challenges in the implementation of the PIC procedure, and best practices, possible approaches, and initiatives to improve its functioning, taking into account the information that was compiled and presented at that meeting, as well as the views expressed. And the group was mandated to develop recommendations for improving the PIC procedure, avoiding duplication of work, and ensuring consistency. There was an invitation to a lead party, which was taken up by France. And the lead country was to prepare a report on the challenges and these best practices, possible approaches and initiatives, as well as options for possible ways forward. And that was then to be considered by the open-ended working group at its 14th meeting. And then the Secretariat was also to report to OEWG 14 as well as to the upcoming COP17 meeting. The group has been set up. Irina is the chair, Irina Talamoni from Argentina, and the lead country is France. The group has held its first meeting in two parts. The first of which was between 7 and 8 of March in Geneva, face-to-face. And then there was a second part, part 2, again in Geneva between the 9th and the 11th of October last year. The lead country prepared a first draft of the report that was considered in the meeting in March and then subsequently revised in consultation with the group, and it was presented to OEWG 14 in June. There were comments received before and after that meeting that were taken into account by the Small Intersessional Working Group, and a further revised report was prepared for part 2 in October. That report has subsequently been revised by the lead country and endorsed by the group, and sets out as well recommendations that will be considered at the COP17 meeting in April. We have a number of different members. All of this information is available on the convention website, so please don't worry about going through all of the lists. But we have, of course, members from all of the United Nations regional groups, as well as observers from a number of different stakeholders, including from parties, non-party states, UN entities, and intergovernmental organizations, regional centers, governmental and non-governmental organizations, and industry bodies. In terms of the invitation for information, parties and observers were invited to submit information on a number of different elements, as well as comments on the draft report. And those submissions have also been put on the convention website page. So there is full information that can be consulted if you wish as well. Just in terms of the timeline of how the SIWG has worked from November 2023, when there was the first informal consultation, all the way through to the upcoming April to May COP17 meeting. So with that brief introduction, I'll hand over to Stéphane, who will take you through the work of the SIWG and the substance of the recommendations. Thank you, Stéphane. Over to you.
Thank you, Yvonne, and thank you, Irina. Hello, everybody. So if we go to the next slide. The parties and observers who submitted comments to the call for comments from decisions 15.3 and 15/2 detailed a lot of different issues, challenges, frustrations with the implementation of the PIC procedure. So, of course, you can't read the small letters in the table here, but this is to show how we organized the feedback from parties and observers from their submissions in the column of the left. In the column of the middle, you've got who said what, and together with the consultant, Patrick McGill, who worked with us on the drafting of the report, we identified 5 major categories of challenges, which are the exchange of information with and between competent authorities, a category which is a bit cross-cutting and dealing with the capacity of competent authorities. One is the transit of transboundary movements. The 4th category was the notification decision-making processes, and there was also an item related to financial guarantees. For each of these challenges that were identified by the parties and observers, we tried to identify also best practice or initiatives that could answer these challenges. So every time it was possible, it is said so in the report. We came out with 34 options to go forward at the end. And out of these 44 options that will be in the report, that are in the report, the group agreed to retain 31 of them as recommendations to the COP. Can we switch? Thank you. So 31 recommendation the COP should. So a lot of comments that came to us dealt with communication and exchange of information with and between competent authorities. So for this first one, and especially on the contact information issue, we got 4 recommendations. There's already work which has been carried out by the Implementation and Compliance Committee, the ICC. So that's why the recommendations here we would see are about considering, emphasizing things that are already in the convention or work that the Secretariat is already carrying out. So first recommendation is about considering, emphasizing that the implementation of the convention relies on the transmission of complete and updated information pertaining to the designated focal point and competent authorities, including functioning email addresses that are regularly checked, and avoiding, where possible, the use of email addresses that are only accessible to one person. The second recommendation encourages parties, competent authorities, and notifiers to inform the Secretariat of communication challenges with other focal points and competent authorities that they could have met. So the Secretariat should continue its practice of following up information received about these communication challenges with a view to support parties in providing updated contact information and, where required, update the convention website. The third recommendation is that the COP should request the Secretariat to incorporate reminders on updating contact information for focal point and competent authorities into the annual and semi-annual national reporting reminders email. Fourth recommendation requests the Secretariat to assess the costs and benefits of developing and implementing a web-based tool that would enable focal points to update their contact information and that of competent authorities in real time. So that would be a new thing. It's a proposal that was made by a party and supported by others during the last REWG, notably. Next, thank you, Dan. Still in the exchange of information, and to address the uncertainty as to receipt of notifications, Recommendation 5 proposes that the COP should encourage all parties to ensure that their competent authorities, regardless of whether they are the state of export or the state of import, promptly communicate the receipt of notification documentation to notifiers. Furthermore, the COP should remind parties that are states of transit of their obligation under the convention to promptly acknowledge to the notifier receipt of the notification. Regarding the means of communication, recommendation 6 encourages parties with support from the BCRCCs as appropriate to use, where possible, email or other electronic approaches for the transmission of notification document. And where possible and in line with the national legal requirements, accept the electronic authentication of notifications document, including, for example, the use of electronic signatures. Recommendation 7 proposes that the COP should invite parties to share information with the Secretariat and how many of them only accept paper notification and movement forms, how many accept both paper and electronic notification documentation, and how many parties accept only electronic notification documentation, and details from parties on the rationale for the approach adopted to be published on the website. And we've got next slide, please. One recommendation left in this category of the exchange of information with and between competent authorities, and it's related to the notification and movement document forms themselves. And proposal is that the COP should invite views from parties on possible solutions to address challenges related to the language of the notification and movement documents forms and other challenges reported by parties in response to question in response to question 4AI of a national reporting format and available in the reporting dashboard to be shared with the Secretariat and to be published on the website. Thank you. So now we are moving to the next category, which is the capacity category. Recommendation 9 proposes that the COP should request the Secretariat to emphasize the need for parties to receive support, including training workshops in the implementation of the PIC when implementing the Technical Assistance Plan for 25-28. Recommendation 10 requests the Secretariat and invite the BCRCCs to undertake capacity building activities for competent authorities and focal points to strengthen the implementation of the PIC procedure. Recommendation 11 requests the Secretariat to enhance the web pages of its website that contain information of the PIC in order to make information more user-friendly and available, and available tools more visible and accessible for notifiers and other stakeholders. Recommendation 12 invite parties to share information from the Secretariat on approaches taken regarding costs of processing the notification and movement document forms, including approaches to recover such costs. Recommendation 13 encourage parties to promote regional cooperation by exchanging information on difficulties with the PIC, including in relation to transboundary movements, and establishing new regional informal networks for competent authorities where they do not exist, with support from the BCRCCs as appropriate. Let's move to the next category, which is transboundary movements. Recommendation 14 draws the attention of parties to the option that already exists under the convention to not require prior written consent for transit, transboundary movements in general or under specific conditions. Recommendation 15 proposes that the COP should decide to amend question 3H of a national reporting format to add a sub-question III, inviting information on their practical application of the term transit with concrete options to choose from modeled on Annex 3 to the present report. In the report, we have an Annex 3 that presents the different kind of scenarios that were identified by a work of the ICC previously. The different kind of scenarios that a ship can cross the economic exclusive zone and have an innocent passage, or come to the harbor or download on the harbor the load, the hazardous waste. There are different kind of scenarios, and the proposal here is to build on these scenarios and to inform the other parties about the interpretation of which scenario falls under the concept of transit. Recommendation 16 reminds states of export to proactively communicate to state of transit relevant information concerning intended shipments where the states are involved, including regarding the proposed duration of the validity of the consent. Thank you so much. Next slide is about the notification decision-making processes, and especially on the time periods. Recommendation 17 encourages parties subject to national circumstances and capacity to consider determining time periods for notification, processing, and decision-making in national legislation, national policies, service standards, or national procedures. Recommendation 18 encourages all parties subject to national circumstances and capacity to consider options and approaches to determine time periods for notification, processing, and decision-making. And recommendation 19 invites views from parties on the use of defined time periods for notification handling, such as the sending of acknowledgements, notification decision-making, including views on the time periods that would be accessible to parties for the Secretariat to be published on the website. So it is about calling for comments here. Thank you so much. Yes, and next slide is about to address the lack of clarity regarding national provisions. Recommendations 20 encourages parties to submit and regularly update information on waste defined as hazardous waste pursuant to Article 1.1b and national provisions regarding TBM of waste. Recommendations 21 requests that the Secretariat review question 3 on restrictions and on and conditions for TBM of hazardous and other waste of a national reporting format to determine whether improvements could be made to enhance the reporting by parties. Recommendations 22 request the Secretariat to raise awareness of or on the export and import control tool and report dashboard, which include information on national definition of waste and waste defined as hazardous in the website. Recommendations 23 invites information from parties on how they implement Article 6.5, as well as how parties address specific situations when their interpretations or definition of waste differ, including information from parties on how they address such situations in their national legislation. Recommendations 24 request the Secretariat to update the Convention's website so that information on waste defined as hazardous waste provided by parties is more accessible. Next slide, please. Now, still in the process to make a decision on notification category, but about simplified and faster decision making. Recommendation 25 proposes that the COP should encourage parties and observers concerned with intended transborder movement to cooperate through information information exchange prior to the movement. This is a best practice which was shared by a party and which was endorsed by the group as a proposal. Recommendation 26 urges parties to comply with the obligation to transmit complete national reports, including complete tables 2 and 3 on final disposal and recovery options of a national reporting format. Recommendation 27 encourages parties to highlight to their competent authorities the option of granting consent to movements for a period of 12 months from the date consent is granted. Recommendations 28 reminds parties of the possibility of the provisions in Article 11 of the Convention for bilateral, multilateral, or regional agreements or arrangements. Thank you. Next slide, please, Dan. And we're going to the last recommendations. In the category variation in approaches to financial guarantees, recommendations 29 requests the Secretariat to include the revised guidance on insurance bonds and guarantees adopted by the COP in any new training. Regarding issues with maritime transport of waste and to gather more information on the reluctance of some shipping lines to carry waste because of problems encountered in the implementation of the peak, recommendation 30 invites parties and observers to undertake awareness-raising activities of stakeholders, including carriers, IDEST, shipping lines, and how to better implement the peak procedure. And last recommendation of the report would be for the COP to consider extending the mandate of the SIWG on improving the functioning of the peak beyond COP17 and to keep on working on the topic. With that, we are getting to a conclusion slide. Thank you so much, Dan. Just to remind that these challenges in the implementation of the peak are an obstacle to the good environmentally sound management of hazardous waste, and especially for low and middle income countries that rely on facilities in other countries and who need to go through a peak. So this is a very important topic. The recommendations in the report are intended to support parties and competent authorities to improve the functioning of the peak and by extension enable progress towards the full implementation of the obligations under the Basel Convention. The report, every time it's possible, includes examples of best practice and possible approaches and initiatives to further assist parties and competent authorities. So many of the recommendations are for the COP to encourage parties and their competent authorities to take a range of actions, and notably on the way they communicate with each other. One of the main suggestion proposal that came through the submissions was about the adoption of electronic approach. This is not a work that we can dwell on in this group because it's addressed by another small intersessional working group on electronic approaches, and duplication of work was to be avoided. But of course, the two working groups have been communicating with each other, working hand in hand, and should keep on working because this is definitely not the solution to everything, but certainly a key aspect to improve the peak implementation globally. And with that, back to you, Irena, Chair, Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan, for passing me the floor. And thank you, both of you, Yvonne and Stefan. I think you were clear describing the process and the outcome of the group discussions. I just want to remark that the report is in the website of the convention and was the report of the meetings that I think may contribute to the parties and observers in the details of the works and the discussions. Now, I think it is time to open the floor for questions and clarifications regarding the process or the report just presented by Stefan. So you are invited to use the chat box or just raise your hands. I open the floor. The floor is yours for questions. Thanks.
Irina, if I may just draw to the attention of all the participants that you have the link to the report of the meeting in the chat as well, just to make it easier for people who may not already have access to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Sorry, I forgot that I had to pass the floor to you first to make the announcement. And yes, I am checking the chat box. I'm not sure if I'm in a good mode of presentation as a co-host, but I see that there are not questions posted there, and I am checking if someone's raising hands. I see. Let's just correct me if I'm checking. I see that there is not questions in the chat box, neither in the ground. So I think that the presentation were very clear, considering that not. So I just want to add as a chair that there was very collaborative spirit during the discussions in the group. All parties and observers and other stakeholders had challenges in implementation of the peak procedure, and the group agreed a set of 31 recommendations based on best practice identifies and their implementation experience. They follow the mandate entrusted them by the COP, and address the issue in or by building blocks by areas of improvement detected. Well, I am confident that together all the parties and observers of the convention can improve this procedure, which is a fundamental pillar of the convention to ensure the environmental sound management of the hazardous waste and other waste. So I think and I'm confident that the improvement will benefit everyone. Therefore, I wish you successful and valuable discussions at the next COP. Thank you for attending.
There's a hand raised. I see Irene. Guillaume
sorry.
is asking, Guillaume Murawa is asking for the floor.
Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't seen them. See, I pass the floor to Guillaume Murawa. Floor is yours.
So I break the heights. Hello to everyone. I am Guillaume Murava, legal advisor in Rail, International Rail Sport Committee. I am as server here. Thank you for this very clear presentation. I am very good surprised by one of recommendation on the need to use electronic communication for sending documents, in particular notification document, for instance. But we are studying the new European regulation on waste shipments that will apply in May next year, in 2026. And this article T7, electronic submission and exchange of information provides that good exchange, electronic exchange between competent authorities and different parties. So my question, maybe Stefan asked already a little, because it's another work and another intersessional working group on electronic submission. But are you planning in this group any brainstorming or preliminary work implement this at the level of the competent authorities? Thank you very much for your response, and many thanks for your very faithful conference.
Thank you very much for this feedback of the group, and I will check in who can address the questions. And I think that maybe the Secretariat, Yvonne, may. So Yvonne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Irina, and thank you, Guillaume, for the question. I think for the time being, the work is the linkages have been made with the group on electronic approaches, and to see how the COP instructs the different groups to go forwards. So for as you mentioned, there is work being done by parties at the national and regional level. So that work will certainly continue at the initiative of parties, and to see how the groups are mandated. For the moment, there is not work planned in this group in terms of testing electronic approaches, and as Stefan mentioned, there is a lot of work already being undertaken in the other group. So I guess it's a question of watch the space in relation to both groups and what mandate they're given going forwards, as well as the initiatives that are taken by parties themselves. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ivan.
Oh, thank you, Yvonne, for delivering the questions. And yes, just reminding that there is another group also. And in the mandate, it's very clear that we need to try to not overlap the work in both. And well, all the attendees have also a chance to raise hands if they need any other questions or clarifications to address. And want to check with the secretariat if you see any hands, because the previous ones, my apologies, but it was not in the, at least in my screen.
We don't see anything
Okay.
from our side.
Well, thank you. Well, I hope that it addressed the matter just raised by Guillaume. And well, it's time to close the session. I hope it was in your interest for all of you. I'm confident that together parties need to improve this procedure and fundamental pillars. The convention is very important, this work, and it was noted because it was a very massive group regarding the members and the observers that engage with the task. So have a nice day, all of you, and I hope to see you in the cup for the discussion. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.